Julian caught impetigo on his nose. The infection was so severe that overtook most of his nose. After that, he seemed to would have little things that would happen. He would develop sometimes almost like repeats, and then it became the clothes sensitivity. He couldn't stand clothes that were too tight. His tops had to be loosened. Tags would bother him extremely. The teacher was then saying, something's not quite right there. I'm not quite sure, can pinpoint it, but something's not quite right there. He might have a problem with the central processing part of his brain that was not processing information properly, because he seemed to be paying attention, but yet he could not then do the task. He would have to repeat it and he'd forget things. We're starting to notice a bit of anxiety, and it was creeping up, and then all of a sudden, like overnight, his fine motor skills he was having a hard time writing and even putting things on a page, like, so his spatial, his visual ability to know where to go on the page was totally off. And so we were looking towards getting him some help with OT for him in month of March, but he then became very much incapacitated by his anxiety. He all of a sudden didn't want to go to school, and this was a kid that loved school. And then from that fear, which we initially thought was anxiety, all of a sudden became this hitting his head.
I felt just so much noise in my head, and it was just, everything was all messed up, and it was like this fuzziness. It was like this fuzzy feeling that it was kind of like the static on a TV, but if that was a feeling.
There was a point where he says, "Mommy, you need to take me to the doctor. I need to have a scan of my brain, because until I see a healthy brain in my brain and that they match, I do not believe that I do have a healthy brain. My brain, there's a tumor. I have a tumor in my brain." And so we requested an MRI, and the MRI was fine. Like, there was nothing wrong in the MRI. Everything came back, no abnormality, everything was fine. But we were still, something is wrong. Our child was not like this a few weeks ago. At the beginning of his illness, Julian was able to hold back. So once we would get into the doctor's office, he's being his nice, respectful self, well-controlled, and he would try to basically restrain himself from doing his tics or the things he had at the time. But the moment we would leave the doctor's office, I could barely get him into the car. He'd be on the floor. Sometimes the one day he was on the floor in the parking lot, and I could barely get him into the car, yet the doctor wasn't seeing any of that. So we were able to get in with a pediatrician, but at that time, that very first pediatrician, still she thought was anxiety, so let's give him something for anxiety. So he was given a medication just to help with his anxiety. Then he kept getting worse and worse and worse, really severe, to the point that he was then saying, "Mommy, I can't live like this. I want to die. If my every day is going to be like this, I just want to die." So that was hard. And he started becoming stuck in places. So in the bathtub, I remember specifically the day when he was so stuck in that bathtub, he couldn't even come out, and he was crying and he's screaming, and I just want to die. And then I called Children's Services. I said, I need to have somebody see my child. Somebody needs to speak to my child. Something is wrong, and I don't know what it is, but somebody needs to help me.
She just took him to the side and asked him some questions and observed him. And we came away from that, she's saying, this is something medical. It's not mental. There's something medical going on with your son. You need to take him to the ER, and you need to demand them to take a look at your child. So we did.
The doctor comes in, and of course Julian again is trying his best to stay under control, like trying to control his tics. I mean, they were there and noticeable because he was that severe. So by this point, he couldn't really hide as much as he was hiding before with my family doctor. So my family doctor didn't really get to see much at all. But by this time, he was still not showing what we were seeing, nothing. So that's when I decided to videotape him. Once the doctor stepped out of the curtain, I decided to videotape him without him noticing. And then I stepped out of the curtain area, went into the doctor and said, "See this, please. this is what we're seeing, and this is minimal. This is just a little bit of an idea because he knows, he's very well aware of his surroundings, and there's people around. We're just divided by curtains in here. But if this was home, this would be 100 times worse. This is what's going on. And that's when she goes, oh, okay, well, let me call the pediatrician on call. So she called the pediatrician on call. We left that night there with just some medication to help him calm down, for his system to calm down. We then got an appointment for 10 o'clock the next morning with this pediatrician. And that's when the first time the word PANDAS came out. So we didn't know what PANDAS was. When we were at that doctor's office, then we're going through the criteria. Does he have this? Yes. He prescribed then the azithromycin. And so that was a Friday. We came home, we picked it up in the pharmacy, started Friday night with the azithromycin. By Saturday, we had seen change. By Sunday, we're seeing a bit more change, and it kept getting better. But then this past so October 2016 was when we then lost him for good until 2 weeks ago. We were wondering why was he not getting better? He was not at school, he was not around anybody, so why is he not getting better? That's when we then tested our whole family, and sure enough, we find my oldest son was a strep carrier. His levels were always high.
Just a couple weeks ago, he had to go to my aunt and uncle's house because he can't be around me anymore.
But he will, though. It's just temporary. We're just giving you a break right now.
Just
but
so you can heal.
He'll be back. Well, yeah, it's been a struggle. This disease hits the core.
But so it's been a rough journey because he's had to do a lot of treatments until finding the right stuff. Because again, it's like he even himself will say it. It's like, I'm a guinea pig, Mom. We don't know if this is gonna work or not. We don't know. So let's try all these antibiotics. Let's see if it works. Oh, this one is not working, making things worse. Oh, let's try another one. And it's like, I keep on taking medicine. Every day is medicine. Mommy, it seems like you're constantly giving me something between medicine and supplements. I'm always doing this, so it's been a very, so since I would say since October 2016 until about a week ago, this child has not had one symptom-free day, not one, and he can tell you until his most recent IVIG treatment.
It's been a lot better. I don't notice anything happening at all. It's just been all gone for the most part.